Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded August 25th, 2021. Good evening, Frank.
Good evening, Edward. Looks like we have a full house tonight.
We got a full house. Spread them out, baby. House always win. Anything interesting, man? How you doing?
Doing good. I'll tell you what I'm doing in February when I'm out of NDA.
I know. Rod?
You want to know what I'm doing?
How you doing?
Oh, how am I doing?
And the wedding.
Yeah, so my youngest son got married last week. We talked about this earlier, but it had to be the hottest day of summer. Anybody's ever been to a wedding, a lot of officiators, so a lot of pastors, they'll use 1 Corinthians 13 or something in the Bible. It's like the love chapter, and it's a long chapter, and it's hot. And I'm thinking he's seeing everybody, like pulling on their collars and sweating to death, and he's going to kind of shorten this whole thing up. And nope, it was the longest ceremony. And our kids, my son and his newlywed, I think they hand them the menu of things that you do during the ceremony, and they literally just checked every one of them because we did everything, all the way from candles to prayer to a song to some kind of remembrance thing. So it was long and hot, but it was
sounds
wonderful.
Sounds like you went to a service at a black church.
Yeah,
you there all day, brother.
Yeah,
man. They we're gonna do this, and it's the prayer and pass it around again. And
they look at you weird if you don't cover everything. But
my both of my sons are of age for that. So my 32-year-old, he's right there. My youngest boy is so adamant about. He's 30. He wants to get married so bad, and he wants to have these kids and do all this other stuff. And this girl was like, "I'm still in law school, right?" And we're like, so. But it was a good time, man. You get to see family, as long as there were no fights, right? Yeah. Anything to gather in my people, man. My folks want to fight. Uncle Buddy, like, I'm gonna fight everybody.
Yeah, right? I think everybody just wanted to kind of sit still so they wouldn't sweat anymore. They hated each other, but it was too hot to fight.
Remind me again where you were.
Ohio. I know where you're from. I know you're in the hottest place on the planet, but Ohio was pretty hot.
No. Atlanta's hot.
Yeah,
but it's not a hotter place on the planet. I got some buddies down in Phoenix, man. They're spontaneous combustion when they walk outside.
But it's a dry heat.
It's not.
So is Microsoft making you guys work yet, or is it still summertime? What's the deal?
I don't know
I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know who's listening. I'm gonna be quiet. I tend to get myself in trouble, right?
So we won't get into your certification woes because
we are going into my certification.
Groundhog Day situation.
Two things. I'm no longer certified in Microsoft. Been certified since 1998. They wiped it all out because of what he told me to do. I put a submit ticket in. I got myself restored. Got all my certs. I tried to merge my accounts. They wiped me out again. I registered for exam. They canceled my exam without telling me. Didn't reinstate. I get there and they're like, "You don't have an exam today." I'm like, "Oh, okay. It's Friday. You don't have any exam, sir. You don't exist." So I'm still dealing with this. This has been going on for months. So I'm about to just give up. But that's not important. The most important thing is this. I'm a team player. I love my teammates. Michelle, we get together. One of my peers over at Microsoft put together a Defender for Industry training event and removed the polling before I could give my opinion about when I wanted to do the training, and purposely scheduled it when they knew I was going to be on a plane and couldn't do it. I'm not going to mention any names, Michelle. But it's so funny. Like, I'm on a plane the whole time, and so, no big deal. I'm hurt.
Don't worry, Edward. We're going to reschedule it just for you. It'll just be me and you attention.
Forget
the other guys.
All right. So let's get into the meat of the thing. Thanks for joining the podcast. We have two distinguished guests. We have Mr. Tom Quinn and Michelle Jackman. They are Azure security experts at Microsoft. They have the prestigious title of being a global black belt. I don't think there's a subtitle unless they're called security, but I have no idea. I know that if you look up them, they may be global black belts in dynamics.
That's
It's
a
joke,
laugh
right?
out loud.
Yeah. So they're going to come on and we're going to talk about cloud security posture, and then we're going to have a Zen and a what's it, friend? What is it? Zen and Zing? What's the two little opposing signals?
Yin yang.
Yin Yang.
Yin yang.
That's a rap group too. If you didn't know that, Yin Yang Twins, right? I could not do justice to their introductions. I had the pleasure of meeting them as we are in the same team, but knowing anything about them other than what we've done for the past year. But I'm going to let them do their introduction. Michelle, would you like to go first, please? Tell us a little bit about you, your passion, what you're doing, and then we'll hand it over to Tom, and then we'll do like beat it. You guys will put your hands together. We'll do the string around it, and you guys have to talk about who's right or who's wrong, right? So I'm gonna concede the floor to you, Michelle, and I'm gonna go on mute and have fun. We have fun here. We are a show of highly opinionated facts. That's how we operate. So, Michelle, the floor is yours.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Edward. So I'm Michelle Jackman. I am some kind of global black belt. I think it changes from day to day here at Microsoft, and but definitely focus on Azure security. What am I supposed to tell about myself? What do I like to do in general? I like the outdoors, and I like computers, and I really like talking to Tom Quinn all day, every day, every chance I get. But mostly because he does all the talking, and I just get to take care of all of the other things I like to do in the meantime. Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I don't believe a word Michelle says. I'm minus your name, Michelle. You nailed that. That was pretty good. Beyond that, no, I'm an Azure security person too. I generally work for Michelle. We do go back and forth sometimes on things, but not often. We're usually kind of on the same page. Not Edward. Edward's kind of on a different page, but we're on the same page at least.
We should do the insult game,
Oh, can
One
we?
person starts with the insult and see how it goes. We'll do that at the end.
Awesome.
So do you want to say any more stuff about yourself, Tom, or did you already get the chance the last time that you came on a podcast without me and, didn't tell me?
Yeah, beyond that, no, I actually had a Bible question for Rod, of all things, because you mentioned, a Bible verse as part of your wedding, and mine started out, and I want to see if this is the same verse. It was it started off like, and our vows are kind of like this too. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Is that what you're talking about? Is that Corinthians?
No, the Bible's bigger than that. Sorry.
I think it was thou shalt not kill was how the wedding starts out.
It's the only thing I cared about. Please don't kill me. Okay. So that was my only Bible question, Rod. Thanks for
yeah, I'm glad I could clarify that for you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So
I found that helpful as well. Thank you.
So
I don't believe they use the word bitch in the Bible though.
Yeah, they do. They talk about dogs in the Bible, and they call them bitches.
Well,
they call the donkeys asses.
Right. So you might be our Bible source from now on.
Well, I do come from the Bible Belt. Edward does too. Maybe we could have maybe we could talk about how the Bible could be more secure at some point.
It was a heathen.
The Ten Commandments. The 10 Commandments of Azure Security. That's the name of this podcast. Go.
Tom.
That's actually really good.
It is.
Thou should not pay for subscription with credit cards.
Unless it's Edward's credit card, then
your credit. Speaking of credit cards, Frank has a big credit card. Ask him about his experience with IoT.
No. All right. So what are we debating tonight?
Hey, how about this as a cheap segue in terms of, and Michelle, you started it, the 10 Commandments of Azure. How about thou shalt trust Microsoft?
Oh, perfect. That is a very cheap but very perfectly cheap segue into talking about why Azure is secure. Why should we trust Azure? Why should we trust Microsoft? You're always over here yakking about it, Tom, every time I hear you talking on a call to customers. And, you know, sometimes I think it's a lot of fluff, you know, like, oh, well, you know, the cloud's more secure. It helps you keep pace. There's obviously reliability and scalability. And, you know, we provide the secure foundation, the secure network infrastructure. So tell me more about this, you know, like the physical security. Okay. So all the public cloud providers, you know, obviously aren't letting your average Joe Schmo walk in and, you know, start playing with the servers. So why is Microsoft secure?
You know how I like flowery language? You know, it is interesting because if you're going to use something, that's a glass of wine too. Nicely done. I thought it might be Kool-Aid, but it's not. It's fine. So, yeah, if you're going to put your heart into something, if you're going to put your data into something, establishing trust in that thing is kind of a big deal. And you can talk to us all day, you know, and people do. Well, I talk all day. I don't mean to. And you can trust what we say, or if somebody like Frank, you know, tells you something, you might not trust it. And
well,
so,
you know, I'm gonna interrupt before we get down this road. Your Honor, ask the witness to answer the question.
Yeah.
Should I trust Microsoft or AWS or Google? Why should I trust you? Are you saying that you're more secure on premise?
Yeah. Well, usually, oftentimes, yeah. Okay. No, it is a valid question too, man. So if you're looking across the clouds or you're looking at yourself, how looking at yourself?
I'm looking at myself right now because of this live stream. I'm going to look away now.
I don't like looking at myself. But establishing trust is kind of interesting, right? Because you want to have all your questions answered. So you want somebody you can talk to who can tell you to the best of understanding, you know, how things work, how do internal systems work, how do internal processes work, how are they governed, you know, how are they watched over. And then also, the trust but verify? I always tell people too, after those types of discussions and sessions, like, hey, you shouldn't really trust anybody that's talking to you. You want some kind of audited proof. You want some type of third-party validation around those statements. And so we'll have these types of discussions with new customers, and we'll go through, and we have a pretty exhaustive, oh, you know this, Michelle, you were just telling me about some of them, like internal controls around our cloud systems. This includes how personnel access the cloud through, you know, just-in-time, just-enough access type systems, how we use secure access workstations, how they're issued, how they're monitored, how they're governed, how we manage the supply chain around internal employee secure access workstations. It's fascinating. There's a ton of work that goes into every one of those, you know, controls, including detective controls, watching over that entire system to ensure that we try to mitigate as many, you know, vehicles of attack as possible, different threats, including the stack, physical, you know, identity and access, networking, you know, the whole stack. And it just continues to evolve. So we go in and talk about all those different, the typical security domain areas, you know, processes, procedures, people, technologies across the normal security stack areas, and then show proof of it. And the proof's a big deal, you know, like and this is where I think we're pretty good about this, Microsoft, across those key trust areas. I'll stop talking for a second.
So let me ask you a question though.
Yeah.
This is the Justice League, and you're very much sounding like Superman. I'm finna talk to Batman right now. Michelle. Okay. It sounds like the tools are there, but why does Batman not have a confidence in the people to do what's necessary? I mean, you can get tools all day. So I know you guys are on the same side. So what is the counter thing that's preventing folks from using this ultra platform at its fullest extent, you believe, right? That they're not using this? Because I started off my experience in Azure as a networking guy and a workload guy before I got into security. and people brought their bad habits over. Michelle, how do you mitigate these bad habits? You can have all the tools in the world, and Tom is talking. It sounds like Tom's talking about best case scenario. What have you encountered?
Yeah.
Well, while most of us live in the cloud, Tom's head is in the cloud, so he's over there in La La Land, like
almost.
As you can see, yeah, it's like Cloud City right there. I think I see Lando right behind him. So do I have to use my Batman voice? Because I don't think it's going to be very good if I have to. Because I'm Batman.
Give me one.
So,
say I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. And
done.
I don't know if Tom's Superman though, but maybe he's Clark Kent. But I don't know. He's definitely Clark.
I'm more so stuck in Clark Kent. I've never been like a poor man's Clark Kent.
There, like when you rip your shirt off, there's not a Superman outfit underneath it.
I wouldn't recognize him if he took off his glasses. That's for sure.
And you would not.
Or his ball cap.
Just be the telephone booth.
If he takes off his shirt, I'm going to go, oh my God, it's Austin Powers.
All right, so I got a question here because we're talking about vendor trust, okay? And since we do have a Dynamics black belt here, this is a relevant question here.
2 of them.
Oh, you were a Dynamics black belt too?
Three of them.
It's an inside joke, Frank. You won't get it.
Edward
Just kidding.
I am too.
Okay. All right. So what about vendor lock-in with the pricing changes that take place? Okay. So when you take a look at what happened with the Power Platform and Dynamics with pricing changes that were not well communicated, you had customers that ended up not trusting Microsoft because I have all my data there. All of a sudden now I have a $20,000 storage bill out of nowhere, right? And how do I get my data out of there? So how do you deal with that from a trust standpoint across all the different services? I mean, Microsoft just, there was some M365 stuff about some SharePoint stuff a while back ago and so on. So how do you deal with that trust factor other than the fact that there's competition out there?
Yeah. Why? Not so much on the pricing side. That's not a good situation. We generally try to avoid it. But on the security side, trust is everything. It really is. And a violation of commitments around both, our security controls and evidence thereof. And this is what I was building up to. When I was talking, Edward, about trust in us, most customers want to know what we do and how we operate, and commitment around those things. And this is where we use things like like a SOC 2 Type 2 audit report. We use things like the FedRAMP system security plan beyond what we say to provide evidence around those controls. So third-party evidence, as well as abilities to examine those things in depth and ask questions around them. And there's a commitment around those. Now, if we violate them, that's a challenge. That's a hard thing to recover from. And violate any types of commitments, especially around security controls.
Now, did I hear you say that on-prem is more secure than the cloud?
Nah.
Who said that earlier? I thought I heard that.
Yeah.
I think it depends. I think it depends.
I make you think. So,
yeah.
Tom, I don't know if you were completing your thought, but let me before I lose, let me ask this question. How do you manage the trust relationship when you're in this juxtaposition that's really delicate, that Microsoft is the 800-pound gorilla on the desktop, right? Linux is still the thing that is running primarily the world's workloads for server-based workloads, right? But things like the Exchange, hack that came out, these are things that are affecting customers that can make them reluctant to move to the cloud. They go, hell, you can't even secure what's on my premise, man, and you know about this, and you want me to move to the cloud? Even though it's been proven that 365 did not have the same vulnerabilities as the Exchange exploitation that came along. But to a I won't say layman, that's not very charitable, to a person that's trying to convince, if I got to go to my leadership who's really old school, brick and mortar, say, man, we got to go to the cloud. I'm not going to cloud. These guys can't even get the ish right when it comes to securing the mail here, and mail's been unsecure for 10 years. You just no telling what has happened. So, Michelle, how do you manage the trust conversation without it sounding salesy. And if you had to tie it to a product and say, if you do come to the cloud, here is something you need to do this, because all of us on this call know that what happened with there is not directly related to how your security posture is going to be in the cloud, but your naysayers are using this as ammunition. See, I told you, you can't trust them. They knew about this and they didn't do it. And it seems as though they take that and then pile on. They had an MFA outage. They had an Azure Active Directory outage. They had these things. So how do you sound very trustworthy without sounding salesy? Because it sounds like to a customer that says, every time you tell me to be more secure, I got to buy more. Right.
It does sound like that.
Yeah, it does.
I would say I'm not very good at sounding salesy because I don't like to talk about money. And if I were good at being salesy, then I should be in actual sales and then, making it rain. And then Tom really would be my little bitch. And
I already am. Sorry.
The world would be a better place for it. But no, seriously, no, sometimes it is a hard conversation to have. And there definitely are, I spent a lot of years on the customer side and in an industry where we were hesitant to move to the cloud. Anytime that, even I wanted to bring a solution for that was even just SaaS-based or anything, it was like, nope. We don't get to control the data. We don't have control over everything. And really like building that trust takes a lot of time. And so I think it starts with establishing those, sure, we all know hackers are going to hack, dude. So there's always going to be attacks against Azure, Microsoft, whoever the customer is, whatever other cloud provider or vendor there is. But, talking about those, those trusted cloud principles, really like, okay, hey, we care about security. That's the whole CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. These are your crown jewels, or your family jewels in Tom's case. We want to make sure that, that our services are designed and really, operated to keep the data secure, right? And then privacy and control. You don't want anybody, you don't want Tom Quinn to be able to go in and peruse your data because he's just a nosy guy and he's probably not going to do anything with it because he's too lazy to, but still he doesn't need to see it. Compliance. This is one way to really help customers see the value of public cloud is comply to the regulatory obligations, because if you've ever had to go through an audit, it is huge and massive, and it is ridiculously hard to find everything that you need and to know if you're compliant or not. But in the cloud, hey, we're already certified, as Tom brought up a lot of the compliance things. So, hey, we're at a base level of compliance, and then we help you be able to, monitor and see that you are compliant with whatever your regulatory obligations are. And then the whole aspect of transparency. So we're going to tell you and show you, as Tom mentioned before, exactly what we're doing, what we have access to, what we don't have access to, and then help you know what you need to do to protect your information. And then we can kind of get into the whole, shared responsibility and shared risk side of, public cloud and all of that. But I think it goes into just, establishing the fundamentals and basics. And then, we can get into detail. So that's a lot of times what Tom and I have had to do in the past is really talk about, Azure has these built-in mechanisms to protect against various things, such as, just by its nature of being in Azure, you have a base level protection against DDoS attacks and network isolation and ensuring the confidentiality of your data encryption, and secure hardware and firmware. And that makes me think of something that Tom loves to talk about: confidential computing, which is another option. So tying back to your question, Edward, about tying it to a specific product or offering that might help a customer be secure. So if we're talking about some of these regulated industries, confidential computing is cool and huge. And Tom, I want to hear what you want to talk about around complementary computing.
Before we go there, we're doing the bounce around, but I'm gonna stay with you, Michelle. I'm gonna ask you a question. All that sounds good. However, if we really believe, when I say by we, Microsoft, that hey, security is the thing, we need to get people to the cloud. Why does it seem to be more of an opt-in than opt-out? Why is it that the landing of resources is not more compliant by virtue of using the cloud? I know the answer to this. Sales, money, revenue, right? You want to reduce the friction. But let me ask it in this way. Have you ever had a conversation with a customer and be very honest with them, because the customer's right to say, maybe the cloud's not for you? How do you handle that conversation? Because either their maturity is not there, their buy-in is not there. And how do you respectfully bow out and say, hey, based on what we've done, no matter what we have, defender for this, defender for that, policy, ARC, whatever, where is the point where you go, you won't do this, then I can't help you. So how do you have that conversation? Where's the realization that we're in the business of selling subscriptions, software, and resources, and how do you buy out? So the question is sort of really wide, so let me narrow it down. I got a customer, they're on the tipping point, and where is the point where you have 120 seconds to tip them over, yes, we're going cloud, or you have 120 seconds to say, hey, thanks for this, but this is what you need to go do this before you're ready to go here. Because if you bring a customer to the cloud and you don't educate them on the best practice, I hate the word best practice. If you don't educate them on the necessary nuances of making themselves secure, you bring your bad habits over. So where's a 120-second conversation that you're going to use to tip them over to go, or you're going to tell them you're not ready? Can you help me with that? And that's hard for us because we're technical sales. We got a number, right? So Michelle, is that question fair, or is that question really dependent on the customer and the size, where they are, and all the maturity? Let's assume that they're cloud dark and they got to go. Healthcare, law firm, FSI, not so much. Everybody's really in on board. Where's that 127 conversation, either or, for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a really great question. And as with all types of questions in that area in our business, yes, the answer is it depends. But what I would say, it depends on not so much, necessarily their size or their industry, but what their business outcomes are, right? What are they trying to accomplish by moving to the cloud? What would it get them? What would it not get them? Does it provide them a better chance to compete or be more innovative, or just be able to, just to use the regular term that we always use when we talk about cloud, is to scale their resources, right? So what do they get from moving to the cloud? And is there a workload or an app that would benefit them from moving to the cloud? Do they have the resources required to support that? I would kind of talk through that, right? So if we've already established, okay, you can trust us, here's the security benefits that you'll get from it, here's why the cloud may be more secure, or at least the benefits that you get. There definitely are, regardless of how much security that you put into your on-prem environment, there's still some really cool things that you can get from the cloud, right? Regardless of what you're doing on-prem. So taking all that into consideration, then, I personally don't take the perspective of I'm here to push them one way or the other. I'm here to kind of guide them and let them know what I know, what I've seen others do. A lot of times customers want to know what other people in their same industry are doing, their own competitors and stuff like that. So that's, what I call best practice is, here's what other people do. So typically I would share that and really just be there to guide them in their decision, but maybe help them pick, okay, hey, do you have a workload that is critical and ready to go? hey, do you want to do a lift and shift of some easy app that makes sense? Is there, do you have an opportunity to completely, make a cloud native app that would really change the trajectory of your business? So that's how I would approach that. Hey, if you're ready or not.
I got to tell you, Edward, I have not had the should I move to the cloud talk in probably 5 years. No lie. It is a how do we get to the cloud, and also understand, and the justification for the pricing. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about Azure Arc to help, because I mean, I'm dealing with customers that are migrating enterprise applications that are in, there's 20, 30 of them all talking together and so on. Okay. So I no longer, the cloud or no cloud is not the question anymore. It's how do I get there, and then educating them about the price of moving there. And so it just doesn't come up anymore. And top level, the executives are the ones that are pushing for it.
Yeah, so, I had to create a lowbrow question to be able to stage it up, right? It's like I fight, right? So I box and do martial arts. So you really set up your next move, right? So that question was in regards to the next question I'm going to go. So Tom, I'm going to give you the start on this. I don't want to hear about confidential computing, because I don't like these monikers. They give this whole thing, confidential computer, secure operational platform. When you make these services with these vainglorious adjectives to describe the service, you sort of incur the perception that secure works, privileged access workstations or secure workstations like they're hacked. But before we get back to confidential computing, I'm gonna start with Tom. And Tom, you have the floor until you give an answer and the red light comes on.
Or not.
Which is harder to secure? A multi-cloud solution or a single vendor solution for cloud?
Yeah, definitely multi-cloud. You have more things to think about, more things to worry about. You have to understand the nuances of two systems as compared to one.
Well, that's the lowbrow. But give me an example of customers who their argument is, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. Even though you have, a lot of customers don't realize.
I'm going to add to Edward's question. What if you have a great, skill set and, of a great multi-cloud security vendor that would protect all your clouds, and you're already, used to using this, and you have one vendor. So wouldn't that make it easier rather than having to, secure all of these individual clouds?
Yeah. Well, it kind of comes down to, in my opinion, really a few things. One would be, if you're responsible for, and you always are ultimately responsible for, the architecture and configuration of your systems on those clouds. It's not a SaaS service. I'm sort of disregarding those things like SaaS service, like Office 365 or Salesforce, Box, those types of things. You're responsible for the actual implementation and architecture of the components and pieces from those different cloud vendors, and the control configurations around them, and how they're wired together. And as such, you have to understand what those pieces and parts are, how they work, what are your controls, what's your visibility into them, how do they integrate between each other. And so you can try to do that in a one-size-fits-all way, if that makes sense. And you can have an interpretation layer of control configuration between them. And people have tried to do this. They say, hey, my policy is I need I'll think of something specific. It's just something like no open endpoints. Some of those are pretty trivial, When we start looking at individual specific services per cloud vendor, maybe I want to have and require explicit defined route tables. But I want to be multi-cloud, and I want GCP, AWS, and Alibaba. I'm going to leave us out of it. That policy is not going to apply across those three. So, and the more you move towards away from IAMs, the harder having cloud compatibility, being able to switch between them, how hard it's going to be. because everyone's services, even though we have similar things, they're slightly different. And they integrate different ways. They have different authentication, authorization. They may have different networking sort of components. So it's not a one size fits all. And from a security perspective, the architecture is everything. That it doesn't design those controls and how those pieces are put together. You're never going to have a way to move anything beyond IaaS and some of the basic systems from one to the other. And even with IaaS, you should really think about and consider the nuances and this sort of the different ways that cloud systems work.
I don't envy your position and Michelle's position. You have a title that has a lot of prestige, and you have an expectation of having a lot of knowledge about all things security in Azure. It's not possible.
It's not possible.
Maybe not for you guys.
Okay. All right. So, but my thing would be is, there's a lot to consider. Customers lie. That's what they do, right? To either put themselves in a position of what they believe is fair payment for services that either they understand or they don't understand. So I want to pivot this to, I admire you guys because your skill set across a platform that not only says it seems as though you could stand up stuff in Azure based on security alone rather than workloads. So I'm gonna pivot this away, and then we're gonna pivot back to product. How do you stay aware? How do you stay relevant? I think we said something in one of the podcasts that if you go on vacation, you come back dumb.
Every time.
Every time.
Yes, if you don't log in the portal for a day, you become dumb.
So Michelle, how do you stay relevant? How do you build a routine? She gets a check for honesty.
We're irreverent and irrelevant.
Get another check too. Well, you can't get out of that easy.
Yeah.
Is where do you direct your focus on? Do you direct it on a product set that has a broad reach across everything that could possibly be stood up? Or do you like to focus on something very specific? And I'm going to point this to you, Tom, confidential computing. But that sounds very boastful.
Yeah.
Especially if you talk to the wrong people in regulated industries.
Yeah.
And is confidential computing available in the regulated industries cloud or Azure Gov, stuff like that? Give me a little bit on that, because I know the term, I understand English, I know what confidential means, I know what computing means, but tell me a little bit about it.
Well, there are two questions there. One is around keeping up to date, and there are always changes. And it's like, what's most relevant to the customers we have to work with? That's generally what I try to stay up on top of. And looking at the like the Azure blogs. Hey, that's a new product. Oh, that's a new compliance regime that we can meet. Oh, that's a new service. Oh, there's confidential computing. Oh, there's partially what's it called? Partial privacy. So there are always those technical changes and advances.
Partial privacy.
Yeah. It's interesting. So anyway, there's, say, confidential computing, for instance. And this is something that I thought was kind of cool. It's different. What does that mean? And customers were like, what does that mean? Can I use it or not? And what does it buy me? And maybe I can explain it quickly. So Intel, and I think it started with them, as part of their chipset designs, they had a specific set of instructions that could be executed outside of the hypervisor and the core CPU processes. So it can execute in an enclave, a secure enclave on board, basically in silicon. It's like, that's pretty cool. So that means if, hey, I'm running some type of application that can use, this is very important, that could actually use those instruction sets, that could be executed outside of the visibility of the actual operating system and the core CPU running on that system. So it means you could run something that's totally isolated from even the cloud provider that is operating that bare metal. You're a guest OS on a core OS, and your guest OS, if you use confidential computing, could run an application that's actually going to be executed in a separate section of silicon outside of that base bare metal OS. That's pretty neat. And what does that buy you? It's like, well, what if, and these are always what if things, and security people are always what if? What if that core base operating system that's supporting my guest virtual machine is compromised? What if another guest can get over to another guest? Things like, what was it called? Spectre, Meltdown, potential exploitable vulnerabilities, which we patched ahead of time. We weren't susceptible to these, but what if there is one like that? That's where something like confidential computing would help mitigate the impact of an attack like that, because even if the bare metal OS hypervisor was compromised, your data and the execution of your application would be outside of that area in silicon where that's executed. So in a nutshell, that's what it gets you. And the problem is it's very specific. It's only a limited instruction set. That means it's not one size fits all. You gotta
the thing about that is that you use Spectre and Meltdown as an example, and you open a can of worms here.
Yeah.
Spectre and Meltdown was like COVID. It didn't respect boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't respect class, state, color, race, beliefs.
Yeah.
And so you put it in confidential computing doesn't lower or doesn't eliminate that. So you're still operating in someone's environment. What I'm trying to say is that confidential computing sounds as though you're giving me the ability to run my workloads independent and in a non-shared environment, but the vulnerability stays the vulnerability. So who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
Who's responsible for the patching of all that stuff?
Well, that's different. And it actually would have mitigated the threat of Spectre Meltdown.
Okay.
But one of the key benefits there is, right. So we talk about encryption all the time of our data, and that's one of the key benefits of confidential compute is it's in-place encryption. So we have encryption, at rest and in transit. But what about when it's in use, right? And so we're protecting the data while it's in use. And that's one of the things that really makes confidential compute and secure enclave stand out in these attacks, right? So, and also another side use case isn't just like against attackers, but also against, hey, the federal government put in a subpoena for your data, and we won't give them the keys to decrypt your data at rest. But guess what? How about this data in use that's in memory? Well, if it's in confidential compute, good luck, decrypting that stuff. So
that's a very good point. So I'm going to ask another question: is that how do I get it, and is it available for everybody? I know the way Microsoft sort of works, it goes to commercial first, and then everybody else the parity is not always there. So if I do this thing, can I get it? And how much more is it? Because it's always going to come back to cost. How much more is it? Right? Because now security expenditures are improving and CISOs are getting more control, or VPs of security, or whatever title it may be, are getting more control of their budgets independent of someone like a CFO or a CIO. So if I wanted to go this, how do I justify the cost? Or what industries are very focused on this type of thing? I can think of one. When I used to do agencies, ITAR. Anybody has an ITAR regulation, right? You're selling munitions, right? So where's the target industry for confidential computing? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to sell it. I don't know how to stand it up. Do you go in and you type in confidential computing inside a tenant and it comes up and you spin it up and you put it in here? And then how do I trust but verify? Because if an auditor comes in and I don't made all these grandiose like, confidential computing on Azure, you can't get to it. And the guy's like, I just cut payroll checks off your server. So how do I stand it up really quick? And then how do I verify that if an auditor comes in, other than the service trust link that you can go to that talks about we meet CFA, CFS, CIA, CMO, AEIOU. How do we do that? I don't know how to do that.
Well, there were a lot of questions there, and what I wanted to hit on was around the industries, right? So, some of the three biggest use cases that I'm aware of would be government, financial services, and healthcare, right? So, various things around, I don't know, not only cybercrime prevention and everything like that, and fraud prevention and stuff like that, but safeguarding all of this very important data around your citizens or your financial customers, or with the healthcare, like drug development, and contact tracing and all of that really crazy stuff. And then you had some questions around standing it up and testing.
And if it's beyond the scope of this call, because standing up is not this simple, I think what I wanted to understand, is it a separate cloud? And is confidential computing run in dedicated data centers like GovCloud is? It's not. I didn't know that.
No.
Available in sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, go ahead, Michelle.
No, you first.
Damn.
Who wants to be the first to give the wrong answer? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, one thing that I do want to say is that it's not just so a lot of times when we talk about confidential compute, we're talking about just VMs. But Azure confidential computing isn't just about VMs. It also covers some of our PaaS and SaaS services, and it's all about the most secure route with control over your whole line of code, or really helping your apps be confidential. So we have, like just different services, and not only confidential VMs, like what Tom started talking about, the Intel and our secure chipset, right? And so that does apply to all of these services that would be running on those types of hardware. But you can get your VM, that's a confidential computing, but you also have Azure Key Vault and our HSMs, our Kubernetes services, AKS. That's one of the key services that runs on confidential compute. And those are some of the main ones that I'm aware of. I think also some of our IoT stuff runs on there, which I think is really cool.
So Tom, I'm very criminal minded. Sounds like a great place for me to put my illegal operation. And you can't turn it over to law enforcement. Or can you?
Turn what over, I guess that's the big question.
Myself and Rod Trent's nefarious activity where we're doing huge ransomware type stuff, right? So if I can run this confidentially, how does Azure prevent bad guys from getting up on there doing criminal-minded stuff? That not me, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm really talking about Rod Trent. He hit me up right here and asked me to ask the question. So
I want
to know, Rod, what kind of bad stuff are you running?
I was
Frank made me do it.
I was like, just look at him, man. You can tell.
No,
he's probably like putting like some of those bad scriptures, like all the ones that say
I mean, he's like, all he needs is a hat. He's Heisenberg.
I'm reading Song of Solomon right now.
Yeah, he's Heisenberg on Breaking Bad over here, right? So confidential computing sounds very, very, very good from a standpoint of those who need to be able to have assurance that they run workloads that are isolated, and that was addressed on premise with the different virtualization platforms. VMware does a really good job of that, right? Docker did a very poor job of that. And containers seem to be, well, they're not nuances, or they're not newbies anymore. Let me ask you guys opinion around container security. I know that Microsoft has some, but the major competitor outside of the Azure cloud is Twistlock. What do you guys think about securing containers?
I love it. That's what I think about it. I think a big thing is, like what we're really focusing on a lot here in the Azure space is the whole like ship left mentality, right? So not even being able to secure your image and your code before it goes to production and everything. So scanning those container images, and then also around the environment hardening, right? So, hey, I have a Docker configuration. Is there any weird anomalies going on there? What about my Kubernetes cluster? So, besides the confidential compute aspect, we do have with Azure Defender, we have those three main areas that we focus on in container security with Azure Container Registries and some other registries. Our container hosts. So, if you have a Linux VM, running Docker, and you want to look for, hey, is someone doing some crypto mining on my nodes? And then we have AKS, Azure Kubernetes clusters, a Defender plan for that. And that's really, we actually tie directly into the API of that. And so we're always looking for suspicious activities and looking into misconfigurations. You can tie into the open policy agent. And so you can, really help enforce, hey, someone can't deploy an image with this, without this security shit involved in it. And hey, this thing's vulnerable and stuff like that. So I think it's important. That's what I think about container security. Yeah, I get really excited about it. Containers are cool, and they have a lot of cool words that I like to say.
So, Edward, once you take the SC200 course, I would definitely, the exam, you'll definitely be taking a look at the Azure Defender related to all of that sort of question.
Crazy part about it, when I took the the AZ500, I aced that whole piece of it. API security, container security, and all this other stuff, right?
Well, you tell us about it.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. I'm a good guesser. You get the little black line that says this is what you know. Like,
listen, when you take the test, when you take that test 100 times, you're gonna pass one of those times. So
you put a bunch of monkeys in a room with a piano, right? You're gonna hit Beethoven's fifth, right?
Or when you help write the test, then sometimes you stand a good chance at it too.
There you go.
Shade on Frank. Thank you, Michelle.
I actually took
you get a strike.
I took the test before I was writing the questions for the test. So I want you to know that.
Well, the other thing, let me ask you this here. So, containers are the thing. There are some major tax companies that were in front of this. So during the tax season, they spin up all these containers for workload. And then as the tax season rolls down, they do this. I think there's something we definitely need to understand a little bit more about, but you can't, this podcast is only so long. But let me ask you one other thing. Another bane to existence of corporations by virtue of consumers making a muck of this is IoT and this new thing called Microsoft has the Azure Defender for Industry. Michelle, that's sort of in your wheelhouse. I can read the press release. What the hell are they talking about? How's this different? How's it different from controls? So you're telling me now that everything's an IoT device? A printer or a laptop, something that... What is Defender for Industry and how that Microsoft determine how that's going to be implemented and if it is different from CyberX / Defender for IoT? Because I had a question in it. I copied the link and said it, and then the customer down and said, so now I can secure my printers. Is it that simple? I can secure my thing that runs, right? If this thing has intelligence, can I secure this thing now? Because I believe the stupid light does try to talk back to the internet. What is the Azure Defender for Industry? Is it industry or industry or what? Am I saying it wrong? I don't know.
Are you talking about Defender for IoT?
Yes.
Or is there actually something called Defender for Industry? Because if there's something called Defender for Industry, then I'm the wrong guy. Tom?
I have no idea. No.
So am I saying it wrong, Frank? Why you let me be a muff here and making a fool of myself?
So
that's what he's there for.
There's two sides of, in my opinion, of Defender for IoT. One is a on-premise server and alert scenario, and then the old way that you're thinking, which is integrated in with, I guess that's actually the IoT hub or wherever it integrates in with from there. So yeah, the IoT Defender for when you're on-prem and agentless based scenario, there's a lot going on there that it's checking for. Excellent product, just don't sign up for the trial.
Don't do it unless you got an unlimited spending cap like Frank's credit card.
Set up an entire new subscription, new tenant, everything like that. Do the trial, cut off your credit card, and go from there.
You know what I want to do?
Never be able to get them to turn it off.
I want to be able to sell an Azure subscription and get my American Express Black card to pay for my services, right? That's how I know I made it. you know, would you like to put your card in here? So I'm thinking with IoT, it's being forced down our throat from operational, PCL, Ford, biomedical, people that make the little bottles that put the vaccine in and do it. And then you got, God forbid, we won't need one in my house, baby monitors and stuff like that. Are they the same? Can I secure the same two workloads? Can I secure a manufacturing plant at the same time I secure?
There's a difference between securing and detecting what's going on. Where Azure Defender for IoT is more about detect. If you take a look at Azure Sphere, is it called, for dealing with securing the actual device. So you're going to have to take a look at that. Azure IoT Edge, is basically a container-based scenario where it's spinning up on the device and you're controlling the modules like that. So there's a lot out there that you can do with this, but that's definitely a deeper conversation and an area that I'm not dealing with on a daily basis, only writing exam questions for.
Well, the cool part about it, you said Sphere. That's what we've been so focused on Arc because we had guests on for Arc and it was Azure Sphere. That's what I forgot. So Tom and Michelle, do you guys work with Azure Stack?
Not too much. Yeah.
No, but we do work with Defender for IoT, which I think we should do another episode on because, like you said, that is my, new.
Michelle gets one for.
You are doing Defender for IoT.
Yes.
When the after the podcast, we will be having a talk.
Okay.
So you can hear about my credit card situation on that scenario.
Oh, here we go.
I don't offer refunds. Sorry.
No, that's not going to happen.
I actually got one. So by the way.
I'm just kidding.
So now I know how you got your refund. You offered me up as sacrifice. Now I can't get a certification.
Well, this was a biblical talk, so we needed to sacrifice someone.
Yeah, you threw me up on there.
You're the golden calf in this situation.
Well, they sacrifice a heathen.
Or whatever.
So what's the score, by the way? We have two judges here. Have we still been keeping score?
Well, yes. I think Tom was real quiet. I don't think he even ever scored a point. So
no, he scored points, man.
He scored one
right here. I'm keeping it right. So
I've actually been pretty busy in chat, so I didn't get
and I'm on the Discord side over here, so we're not being rude. We're bouncing between Twitch and that question on Discord.
All right, Tom. Do you have any final shots that you want to take here? We can't get to that. Okay, go ahead.
We started late because I kept running my big fat mouth, but I'll get to ask the question. Tom, on the M365 security products.
Jeez.
Didn't you do this before?
The thing I don't
MDO, MDI, MCAS, MDE. Based on your knowledge and experience, and I know this is a trick question.
Yeah.
Which one would you deploy to a customer? You get to deploy one.
Well, since you're asking about Azure security, the main thing you would want to deploy with Azure security is...
No, that's not what it did. Your Honor, ask the witness to answer the question. Please. No, I know. It was a true question. So I retract the question. It was just something. But let's flip it. Let's change M365 to Azure security. Which workload? You get one, and the customer says, I have budget. I need much bang for my buck. I am going to do a lift and shift. I'm going to try to modernize some of my apps, but I don't really have time for that for developers. Which product can I give them?
Well, I'll give you an answer first up. The main thing they have to do is architect their controls and architect that system appropriately first.
what product is that? I need a product. You know, these older guys that are like, we don't understand that architecture, man. I need a product. What?
That's not a product. You have to architect and design your system correctly.
So you tell me to hire somebody?
No, you do it. You've done it before. You've done it on-prem. You've been doing it for years.
So you tell me to bring my bad habits and put this stuff over, right?
Learn some new stuff, but networking controls, your identity access controls, how you govern the system, all the things you have to still consider as a security practitioner. You've got to consider.
So they are transitional. If I have a good security posture, methodology, framework, external, internal regulations, and if I am following those, I can transition those over to Azure.
Well, where inside Azure can I find these controls so I can make sure that I'm doing it the right way? I mean, how do I do that?
Here's where you're leading the witness assumption. But
yes, Tom, we know what we want you to say.
Yeah, I'm avoiding saying it too. I will say it though. We have a tool to make this a lot better. Every service has a way of getting to it from a networking perspective, from an authorization perspective, authentication perspective. Every service has a way of monitoring it. And you have to take in those aspects into account when you use a service as part of your architecture.
What service is this? I'm not hearing anything.
Name any past service. By count, there may be 200 and some
SQL
services.
SQL.
200 and some services. SQL.
Is there a Defender plan for SQL?
Here we go. So you want to deploy a SQL database. Are you going to open that up to the internet, Edward?
I want SQL.
Is it?
No.
Michelle, is it Defender or is it just Security Center compliance?
Yeah, so Azure Security Center with Azure Defender on, as it's called these days, I would say is huge, relying on Azure policy to go and see, hey, am I compliant with whatever security controls that I've defined for my organization with these resources. And then, then I do have these various additive plans where I can go and get some additional quote unquote protections around, like MySQL, for example.
Is there anything in compliance.microsoft.com that, or any of those compliance in there help with this situation, or is it just all policy and Azure Security Center?
I got a good one. Let me do your thing. Let me find it.
Yeah, well, as far as, sure, we have a lot of documentation, but as far as actually helping you understand, hey, here's my environment and am I compliant with whether it's an industry regulation or just my security policy, then we have those compliance policies within Azure Security Center that are really going to help you be able to assess that. And that does rely on Azure policy.
Okay. But is there anything in compliance licensing, or is compliance more along the data side, that sort of thing?
I don't talk about real compliance. Tom, do you want to talk about that kind of stuff?
Michelle and I, we actually only talk about, like, say, real compliance. There's something that Microsoft calls compliance and compliance workloads, but it has more to do with data protection, data access. Our customers are usually trying to meet some type of industry standard compliance.
From an infrastructure standpoint, you're saying? Okay.
Well, just across the board. I mean, they have to meet some type of regulation or rule. And or they're trying to align to some type of security framework like NIST.
Now, is all of that stuff available, or do you have to do additional add-ons to get those put in so then you can run those out there?
Just turn Azure Defender on, and then you get access to the compliance policies within Azure Security Center.
Okay, good. All right, so now, Tom, you're falling behind here. I really want to hear if you can catch up here on the insult game.
Damn.
Tom, you're not that nice. You're not that nice. So.
What? Damn, she just got another point.
Well,
so Tom, let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
We all work together in some form or fashion, but what's the thing you're like, golly, man, I wish Michelle would read up more on this. I get tired of asking these damn crazy questions.
Wow.
I wish he would spend some time and quit drinking wine and go read a doc. Which doc would you recommend that she go read right now?
We all learn from each other constantly.
Wow.
I'm not trying to dodge politically that question. No, everyone knows that the
Come
other.
on, Tom.
No.
Where do I suck at? Come on.
I don't even know.
Yeah, you don't.
Wow.
Another one.
Golly, man. I'm running out of
Wow.
E. So, Michelle, I'm going to ask you the question. Tom wants to be the nice guy and everything. Tom, nice guys finish next to last. Believe me, I know. So, Michelle, you got a project coming up, and you go, oh my God, I'm getting ready to do this thing right here. Oh, we're going to team you up with Tom. Like, oh my God, Tom, can you go do your homework on this? What theme or what product, tickles your fancy? Say, Tom, you really got to see this. This is cool. What thing would you tell him? Because you want to be nice. You want to say, hey, man, can you carry your own weight? But you want to say, hey, this is cool. You should go read this before we get in front of a customer.
I heard Tom doesn't know shit about Sentinel or MDE. So,
Yeah, spot on. I'm trying.
And then he has the worst teacher.
Yeah. Wow. Is that you? Oh,
yeah,
man.
I spell KQL SQL. Right.
Listen. If you have MDE and M365 Defender, that's all you need. You don't actually need Sentinel. Oh, here goes.
Wow.
You see, now you got to give me a point against Rod.
Holy
That's
I'm not even going to touch that. Some people pick fights, and I
don't pick fights with Frank. He'll turn off my access to everything.
He'll turn off my access to your certification. You'll never get another cert in your life.
Right.
Believe me, I'm witness to that. Right?
He's like the mafia Don of certification.
So, guys. So let me ask a quick question. I know we're over. I at least want to get 4 more minutes out of you guys. Want to ask this question. I know Frank wants to talk to you guys out of band offline. So all these things you guys have said are very valid. They need to be done. And we all work in the industry, and we're seeing this happen. You can kick and scream all you want. You're going to do it. Right? Michelle, finna hire you. I'm going to pay you $225 an hour. How long is it going to take? To architect this cloud transformation, build my security practice, and do all these other things. Because I got to have a budget. And I got to get you to come on and say, hey, man, I can't do this. Is this a 2-month journey? A 6-month journey? And size should be irrelevant. It should be, what is the determining factors to say, hey, I can get you in a good place to say, here's a piece of paper. Follow this. And this will get you there. Is it repeatable? Is there a time limit, or we're going to go back to the safe answer? It depends. Because it depends means I'm peeing in my pants. No pun intended, right? So
I would say, if you're ready, the cloud is ready for you. And that's the advantage of it, is that it is turnkey. And literally a lot of this shit, you can just flip a switch if you're ready to go. And if you're not, then that's your loss, not mine. So,
Tom, I don't have no switches to flip.
But
Michelle doesn't want the $225 an hour. I'll pay you $250 an hour. Give me a timeline.
What's my statement of work? What do you want me to? What do you want
me? Can
we
just say? Oh, it's 2 weeks. Do I get my $225 an hour?
No, ma'am. I'm moving on. I'm going to go with this guy right here. I asked, you didn't want to give me a number.
He wanted a statement of work.
Well, at least he asked for a statement of work.
Ooh.
So, Tom,
I was just like, I'm ready for you, and you're like, no.
Okay. So, is this a major undertaking that requires retooling our guys, make sure they don't quit, understanding budget considerations and everything else? So, what's the if someone says, hey, I'll do as you say, what's a measurable level of effort to be able to say, and I know this is an unreasonable question, but you got to realize the people that are asking you these questions are people that are unreasonable. They got a C title. They want to know this. They got to be able to attach this to a budget. They got to get head count. They got to fire people. They don't like partners. They think they can do it themselves. If I were to get you to come in to a Fortune 500 company, 6,000 users, using atypical workloads, ERP, SAP, SQL databases, some open source, and all this other stuff. We need to get to the cloud where would you start? Would you start with an internal framework? And you don't get an assessment. We don't have any documentation. I'm paying you all this money because I want the answers from you. Now, I just said $250. I'm going to go ahead and give you $275 an hour. I'm going to guarantee you 40 hours a week. That can get you a Tesla. Where do I start? I need somewhere to start.
But I want a Model S. So
is that a real thing? I don't know. I just said Tesla. I don't know. Is Model S a real thing? She's pulling my leg.
I think it is.
It's a real thing. There's the S and there's the.
I drive a Kia.
I think Tom wants the Cybertruck.
I do.
I drive a Kia, so I would not know.
I want the fucking spaceship. How do I get that?
Yeah, now you're talking.
Is that a real thing?
SpaceX. That'd be awesome.
Stand by. You guys are
all right. So you know where I get asked this question all the time about getting an enterprise started, and I always start with training their people.
That's sort of the answer. It's the investment in the technology. Thanks for framing that, Frank. I couldn't figure out how to do it. It's just this.
And you know what drives me crazy is, the other thing that drives me crazy is that the enterprise customer will say, you know, I have this person, they can really tune SQL Server. You know, they're going to be the best one to go and learn this. I'm like, no, they're not the best one to learn this, because a lot of those skills, those experts that you have in their skills, you no longer need. You need to understand somebody that knows how things are working together, plugging things together, and you need to go out, get them a subscription, and get them pressing the buttons and stop being so scared. It's not like you have to go out and get $100,000 worth of equipment, all this license, set it up and see how it works. Just go out and get your people that know how things are working together and get them out there and just get them to start using it. And you know what? If they mess something up, delete the resource group, you're on your way. Except for Azure Defender.
It's so funny you said that, Frank, and I can't remember if you and I had this conversation. When I have an expert that logs on an SA, you're not an expert. All right. I see someone log into a SQL database as SA. So, and I think the answer I was sort of fishing for, Tom, was investment in people or investment in technology. You got to get the people and you got to get the buy-in, right? Because I've seen mass exodus of individuals who self-dated themselves like, I can't keep up. I know, I feel that pressure. It's hard to stay relevant, man.
Intimidating. Yep.
You know,
don't even get me started about consultants. But hey, we're running a little bit late here. I want to get the final score.
Final score.
I lost. No, hands down.
Oh, well, you did lose.
I concede.
All right.
That'll get you a point, knowing that
you can't.
One for me, 0 for Rod.
So hold on for a second. Let me give my count, and then we'll go to Rod. So I have a count for Michelle Jackman of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I have a score for Tom Quinn of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's awfully generous.
I thought you were going to stop at 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Rod, what do you have there, Rod?
Count in the numbers there.
No. I gave up. I saw that Tom was going to be the nice person tonight, so I just literally gave up keeping score.
Now, Rod, does that mean Michelle isn't a nice person? Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I referred to.
Oh, there goes another one for Tom. See, Tom slides them in without
Tom, you got time. You won back. Give me one more little jab.
There is no way Tom is even one behind me. That's bullshit.
There's no way. I agree with you.
No.
All right,
well, now you want to announce the prize?
Yes, the prize is I'll send you guys both winners. We're all winners. Everybody gets a trophy in this country now.
Honorable mention. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
you get your participation.
Yeah, Tom's first place loser.
Yeah.
I would like to
medal.
say.
So both of you guys, I will gather your email addresses and I will send you your beverage of choice, and I will both send you guys a pair of running sneakers. I'm sponsored by Saucony. So
And a Bible.
And
I can learn
the King James version too. And I'll pre-weather.
No, I want that little free Gideon's one that you used to get in the hotel rooms. Those little tiny ones. Those were cool.
That's where I got all mine.
You do not want to know what I should do with that Bob in the hotel room.
I don't.
Yes.
You don't want to know it.
All right, and
that's as dirty as a remote control.
We'll have to have you back on for Azure Defender for IoT.
Yeah.
That's the real prize that I won is to get to come back on the show.
I'll reach out to you guys. I gave Jeff Chin a pair of shoes. I got to be real nice. Beth has got multiple.
I'll actually use them. You know, out of all of the GBBs, I do exercise. Edward.
I'm gonna tell you something. Jeff Chin's fast. It is not a trivial matter to outrun him. He's a soccer player. He will turn on a dime. Jeff can stop on a dime, and when he moves his feet, it's a nickel and 5 pennies on the other side. You know, he ain't fast as me though.
Nobody.
Let's not be crazy.
Yeah.
You know.
No.
So,
but at least he doesn't make the wrong turns.
And end up in Mexico.
Wow.
Nice. Frank wins, I think.
And on that note, that's
all right,
that's
until
okay.
Next week. Until next week.
Until next week.